We buried my father after his military helicopter crashed. He just walked into my daughter's birthday party in civilian clothes. The pink frosting was halfway to my daughter's mouth when I saw him standing in my backyard. Not a ghost, not a hallucination. My father, wearing a Target polo shirt and khaki pants, holding a wrapped present with a bow on top. The same man whose flag-draped coffin I'd carried 6 years ago. The same man whose memorial plaque hung in my living room. The same man whose death benefits paid for the house where this birthday party was happening. Emma dropped her cupcake. It hit the grass and splattered. She was staring past me toward the fence line where my father stood perfectly still, watching us with an expression I couldn't read from this distance. My wife Natasha grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. "David, is that who I think it is?" Her voice came out strangled. I couldn't answer because my throat had closed completely. My father had died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan in 2018. I'd received the notification at 4:30 in the morning from 2 officers in dress uniforms who stood on my porch and used words like "regret to inform" and "ultimate sacrifice" and "grateful nation." I'd identified remains so damaged they'd recommended a closed casket. I'd given a eulogy at Arlington National Cemetery while my mother sobbed into my shoulder, and Emma, barely 3 years old, asked why Grandpa was sleeping in the box. I'd watched them fold the flag with crisp precision and hand it to my mother with condolences from the Secretary of Defense. I'd filed the life insurance paperwork. I'd scattered ashes at his favorite fishing spot. I'd lived 6 years with the hole his death left in my family, and now he was standing in my backyard holding a Frozen-themed birthday present. Emma saw him too. She pointed with one frosting-covered finger and said, "Daddy, that man looks exactly like Grandpa Jack in the pictures." The other parents at the party started noticing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone's phone fell into the bounce house with a hollow thump. My neighbor Keith, a Marine veteran who'd served with my father years ago, went completely white and sat down hard on the picnic table bench. He recognized the face. Everyone who'd known my father recognized the face. But dead men don't show up at children's birthday parties wearing civilian clothes from discount retailers. Dead men stay dead. That's the deal. That's how grief works. You bury them. You mourn them. You eventually learn to function around the crater they leave behind. You don't get them back. I started walking toward him before my conscious mind made the decision. My legs just moved, carrying me across the lawn past the balloon arch and the rented pony and the table full of presents. Behind me, Natasha called my name, but I didn't stop. I had to know, had to understand what this was. Impersonator, con artist, doppelganger, brain tumor causing hallucinations. Any explanation made more sense than the truth my eyes were showing me. My father watched me approach without moving, without smiling, without any expression at all. As I got closer, I could see details. The scar on his left eyebrow from a fishing accident when I was 7. The slight crook in his nose from breaking it during a training exercise. The exact shade of gray at his temples. The way he stood with his weight slightly on his right leg because his left knee had never healed right after a parachute landing went bad. "David," his voice. The exact timbre and cadence I'd heard in my dreams for 6 years. Not similar, not close, identical. He said my name the way he'd always said it, with that slight emphasis on the second syllable that had driven my mother crazy. "We need to talk. Not here, not in front of Emma, but we need to talk today." I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't process the sensory information my brain was receiving because it violated everything I understood about reality. My hands were shaking so hard I had to shove them in my pockets. "You're dead!" The words came out wrong, too loud and too sharp. "I buried you. I watched them put you in the ground. You're dead." My father's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or guilt. "I know what you think happened. I know what you were told, but I need you to listen to me without judgment, without calling anyone, without making a scene in front of your daughter and her friends." Behind me, the party had stopped completely. 30 parents and 20 children staring at us. Someone had turned off the music. In the sudden silence, I could hear Emma asking Natasha what was wrong with Daddy. Why was Daddy talking to the grandpa-looking man? Why did everyone look scared? I thought about the life insurance money. $250,000 that had paid off our mortgage and funded Emma's college account and let Natasha quit her job to stay home. I thought about the survivor benefits my mother received every month, the pension that kept her in her house. I thought about the memorial scholarship established in his name at his high school. I thought about the street they'd renamed after him in his hometown. complete with a dedication ceremony where the mayor gave speeches about heroism and sacrifice, all of it based on him being dead, all of it fraud if he was standing here alive. How? The question came out as barely a whisper. My father glanced past me at the party, at the crowd of witnesses, at Emma trying to squirm out of Natasha's grip to come see what was happening. Not here, he repeated. Meet me at Riverside Park in 2 hours. The pavilion by the boat launch. Come alone. Don't tell Natasha yet. Don't tell anyone yet. Just 2 hours, and I'll explain everything. He set the present down on the grass, turned, and walked away. Not hurried, not furtive, just walked across the lawn, through the back gate, and disappeared. Like he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. I stood there holding nothing, staring at the empty space where my dead father had been, while my daughter's 9th birthday party collapsed into chaos behind me. Keith reached me first. His face was gray, his hands trembling as he gripped my shoulders. Was that Jack? Was that actually Jack Thornton? Because I served with him for 8 years, and that was him, David. That was exactly him. Other parents crowded around, asking questions I couldn't answer. Someone suggested calling the police. Someone else mentioned witness protection programs. Natasha pushed through the crowd with Emma clinging to her leg, and the look on my wife's face demanded explanations I didn't have. Everyone needs to leave. I tried to keep my voice steady and failed completely. The party's over. Thank you for coming. Please take your kids and go home. Natasha started to protest, but something in my expression stopped her. She turned to the crowd and started the evacuation process, handing out goodie bags and thanking people for coming while I stood there trying not to fall apart. 30 minutes later, the backyard was empty except for deflating balloons and abandoned plates of cake. Emma was inside watching a movie, blissfully distracted by screen time and leftover candy. Natasha sat across from me at the patio table, arms crossed, waiting. Start talking. I told her what happened. Every word, every detail. She listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through disbelief, anger, confusion, and back to disbelief. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You can't go meet him. This is insane. This is a scam or a trap or something. Dead people don't come back, David. They don't show up at birthday parties and request secret meetings. She was right. Everything she said made perfect sense, but I'd seen his face, heard his voice, recognized details no impersonator could fake. I have to go, I said. I have to know what this is. The drive to Riverside Park took 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. My hands kept slipping on the steering wheel because I was sweating despite the air conditioning. I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see military vehicles following me, officials coming to explain that my father was part of some classified program and I needed to sign non-disclosure agreements. But there was just normal traffic, normal people living normal lives where their dead fathers stayed properly dead. The park was mostly empty on a Wednesday afternoon in October. A few joggers, someone walking a dog, nobody paying attention to the man sitting alone in the pavilion, staring out at the water. I parked and sat in my car for 5 full minutes, trying to steady my breathing. This was the moment. Whatever came next would either explain everything or destroy me completely. I got out and walked toward the pavilion on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. My father stood when he saw me coming. He'd changed clothes, now wearing jeans and a plain gray sweatshirt. More like how I remembered him, less like a stranger wearing his face. We stood there looking at each other across 6 years and one impossible resurrection. Thank you for coming, he said. I know this is incomprehensible. I know you have questions. Before you ask them, I need you to understand something. Everything I'm about to tell you is classified. Everything I'm about to tell you could put you, Natasha, and Emma in danger if you share it with anyone. If you want to walk away right now, never speak to me again, pretend this never happened, I'll understand. But once I start explaining, you're in it. You'll know things that intelligence agencies kill to protect. So I need you to decide right now if you want the truth or if you want to keep your family safe. The threat was clear. The choice was impossible. Walk away from answers and spend the rest of my life wondering, or stay and learn secrets that might destroy everything I'd built on the foundation of his death. I want the truth, I said. All of it. Starting with why I carried a coffin that didn't have your body in it. My father nodded like he'd expected this answer. He sat down at the picnic table and gestured for me to join him. I sat, maintaining distance, still not entirely convinced this wasn't some elaborate breakdown I was experiencing. The helicopter crash was real, he began. The mission was real. But I wasn't on that helicopter. I was supposed to be. My name was on the manifest. My gear was on board. But 20 minutes before takeoff, I was pulled off the mission and replaced with another pilot. A pilot who looked enough like me to be identified as me after the crash. My stomach dropped. You're telling me someone died pretending to be you? My father's expression went carefully blank. I'm telling you someone died in a helicopter that was supposed to have me in it. And when the wreckage was recovered, the military made a choice to identify those remains as mine. The other pilot, Lieutenant Cameron Reeves, had no family, no wife, no children, no one who would grieve him or ask questions. He was perfect for what they needed. I stood up so fast, the bench scraped concrete. They murdered someone to fake your death? My voice was too loud. A jogger 50 yards away looked over. My father held up both hands. No, the crash was an accident, a genuine tragedy, but the intelligence community saw an opportunity. They had a dead body that could be me. They had a classified operation that needed someone with my specific skills who could work without any official existence. So they made a trade. Cameron Reeves became Jack Thornton. Jack Thornton became a dead hero, and I became whatever they needed me to be. The implications were crushing. So Mom, me, Emma, all of us grieved a stranger. My father flinched but didn't deny it. I wasn't given a choice. You need to understand that. 3 men in suits showed up while I was being debriefed about why I'd been pulled from the mission. They told me the helicopter had gone down with all hands lost. They told me my name was on the casualty list. They told me I could accept my death and work for them, or I could go public and answer very uncomfortable questions about what that helicopter was doing in Pakistani airspace without authorization. They made it clear that if I chose the second option, I'd spend the rest of my life in prison and my family would lose all benefits. I made the choice that protected you, that kept you and your mother and Emma safe and provided for. I wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to walk away and never look back, but I also wanted to understand, needed to understand. What were you doing? For 6 years, what were you doing that was worth letting your family think you were dead? My father looked out at the water, his jaw tight. Things I can't talk about. Operations that don't exist. Targets that were eliminated without official acknowledgement. I worked for a program so classified that most of Congress doesn't know it exists. We did the jobs that couldn't be connected to the United States government. The jobs that required plausible deniability and complete detachment from any official structure. I was good at it. I saved lives. I prevented attacks, but I had to be dead to do it. The justification sounded hollow. And now? Why show up now? Why blow your cover at my daughter's birthday party? Because the program's been shut down. Congressional oversight finally caught wind of something they couldn't ignore, and they started asking questions. The people running the program made the decision to fold everything before it became a scandal. Everyone involved was given new identities and released. I could have stayed dead, could have taken a new name and started over somewhere you'd never find me. But I've missed 6 years of Emma's life. I've missed 6 years of your life. I wanted to know my granddaughter. I wanted to have a relationship with my son. I know I have no right to ask for that after what I put you through, but I'm asking anyway. The audacity of it took my breath away. He'd chosen to disappear, chosen to let us grieve, chosen his country over his family, and now he wanted back in like he'd just returned from a long deployment. Does Mom know? The question came out harsh. My father shook his head. I came to you first. I wasn't sure if telling her was the right choice. Her heart's not good. The stress of what I'm telling you, the anger, the betrayal, I was afraid it might kill her, but you're young, strong. I thought you could handle it. I laughed, but it came out bitter and wrong. Handle it? You think I'm handling this? I'm sitting here talking to my dead father who's been alive this whole time while my mother cried herself sick, while I had to explain to Emma that Grandpa was never coming back, while I used your death benefits to build a life. Do you understand what this does to me? What this does to all of us? My father's composure cracked slightly. I understand it's unforgivable. I understand you hate me. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I had to try. Had to see if there was any possibility of redemption. The word redemption burned. You want redemption? You want forgiveness? You abandoned us. You chose some classified program over your family. You let us bury a stranger while you were off playing spy. And now you want what? Sunday dinners? Birthday parties? To be Grandpa Jack again like nothing happened? My father's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he looked old, tired, broken. I don't know what I want. I don't know if there's any way back from what I've done. I just know that I'm alive. I'm here, and I need you to know the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. We sat in silence while I processed the impossible. My father was alive. He'd been alive for 6 years. Everything I'd grieved was a lie. Everything I'd built on his death was built on fraud. The life insurance, the benefits, the sympathy, the identity I'd constructed as the son who'd lost his hero father. All of it false. I need time, I finally said. I need time to think about this, to decide if I tell Natasha, to decide if I tell Mom, to decide if I can even look at you without wanting to destroy everything you've said you were protecting. My father nodded. He pulled a phone from his pocket, old and basic, the kind you buy with cash at convenience stores. He wrote a number on a scrap of paper and slid it across the table. This is how you can reach me. I'm staying local. I'll wait for you to decide what happens next. But David, you need to understand something. The government thinks I'm dead. My new identity is clean, but if anyone starts asking questions about Jack Thornton being alive, there are people who will make sure I actually die this time, and they might make sure anyone who knows the truth dies with me. So whatever you decide, be careful who you tell. The threat hung in the air between us. My father stood, hesitated like he wanted to say something else, then turned and walked away. I sat there watching him disappear into the parking lot, watching him drive away in a gray sedan with rental plates. When he was gone, I stayed sitting there for another hour, trying to figure out how to go home and look my wife in the eyes, knowing what I now knew. Trying to figure out how to hug my daughter, knowing her grandfather was alive and watching from somewhere nearby. Trying to figure out who I was if everything I'd believed about my father's death was a lie. The sun was setting when I finally drove home. Natasha met me at the door, Emma already in bed. What did he say? I told her everything. She listened in shocked silence, her face getting paler with each revelation. When I finished, Natasha was quiet for a long time. Then she said the thing I'd been avoiding thinking about. We have to return the life insurance money. If he's alive, we committed fraud. We took $250,000 for a death that never happened. The realization made my stomach turn. We didn't know he was alive. We had death certificates, official notifications. We acted in good faith. Natasha shook her head. That won't matter if this comes out. They'll say we should have verified. They'll say we should have asked questions. And even if we win in court, the legal fees will destroy us. We could lose the house, lose everything. She was right. We'd built our life on blood money. Money that was never supposed to be ours. Money that came from a lie the government told to protect classified operations. And we were caught in the middle of it. We can't tell anyone, I said. Not Mom, not your family, not Emma. If word gets out that he's alive, people will start asking questions. The government might decide we're a liability. My father made it clear that the people running his program don't leave loose ends. Natasha stared at me, like I'd suggested we commit murder. You want us to lie? To keep lying? Your mother deserves to know her husband is alive. Emma deserves to know her grandfather didn't die. How are we supposed to live with this secret? I didn't have an answer. We sat together in the dark living room, the memorial plaque hanging above us, and I felt the weight of impossible choices crushing me. Tell the truth, and risk my father's life, and possibly ours. Keep the secret, and live with the guilt. Return money we couldn't afford to return and watch our life collapse. There was no good option. There was only choosing which way to be destroyed. Days passed. I went to work, came home, played with Emma, had dinner with my family. All of it felt like performing in a play. Everything looked normal from the outside, but inside I was screaming. Natasha moved through the house like a ghost, barely speaking, barely eating. The secret was eating her alive. I kept the phone number my father had given me in my wallet, taking it out a dozen times a day and staring at it. Should I call him? Should I tell him to disappear again and never contact us? Should I try to build some kind of relationship with this man who looked like my father but had made choices I couldn't understand? The decision paralyzed me, so I did nothing, just carried the secret like a weight that grew heavier every day. 2 weeks after the birthday party, my mother called. She wanted to know if Emma could come over for the weekend, wanted to take her granddaughter to the zoo and spoil her like grandmothers do. I said yes, because saying no would require explanations I couldn't give. After I hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand, thinking about my mother living alone in the house she'd shared with my father for 30 years, thinking about how she'd turned his study into a shrine, keeping everything exactly as he'd left it, thinking about how she'd say his name sometimes, forgetting for just a moment that he was gone before remembering and breaking all over again. She deserved to know he was alive, but knowing might destroy her. The choice wasn't mine to make, but I was the only one who could make it. I called the number my father had given me. He answered on the first ring like he'd been waiting. David. His voice was careful, uncertain. I need to see you again, I said. We need to talk about Mom. about what she deserves to know. My father was quiet for a long moment. Okay, same place. 1 hour. I drove back to Riverside Park and found him already waiting at the pavilion. He looked worse than before, thinner, more tired, the weight of his choices showing on his face. I've been thinking about your mother, he said before I could speak, thinking about whether she's strong enough to handle this, whether telling her is an act of love or cruelty. I sat across from him. She thinks you're dead. She's been thinking you're dead for 6 years. Every day she wakes up and remembers all over again. Don't you think she deserves to know the truth? My father's expression was anguished. I think telling her the truth will kill her. I think the shock, the anger, the betrayal, all of it will be too much for her heart to handle. I've read her medical records. The cardiologist has her on 3 different medications. The stress of my death nearly killed her the first time. I think the stress of me being alive might finish the job. The calculation was horrifying, but possibly accurate. My mother's health had deteriorated significantly after the funeral. She'd had 2 cardiac events in the following year. The doctors had said stress was a contributing factor. Learning that her husband had been alive all along, had chosen not to come home, had let her grieve a lie. That level of emotional trauma could absolutely trigger another event, one that might be fatal this time. So what are you suggesting? I asked. That we never tell her? That she lives the rest of her life believing you're dead? My father looked out at the water. I'm suggesting that maybe some truths are too destructive to share. Maybe protecting her from this truth is the kindest thing we can do. The philosophy made me sick. You're asking me to lie to my mother for the rest of her life, to let her keep grieving a death that never happened because the truth is too painful. My father turned to face me. I'm asking you to make an impossible choice. The same kind of impossible choice I made 6 years ago. There's no right answer. There's only choosing which damage to accept. Tell her and risk killing her with the truth. Don't tell her and carry the guilt of the lie. Either way, someone suffers. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say there had to be another way. But I'd spent 2 weeks living with this secret, and I'd seen what it was doing to Natasha and me. The constant tension, the careful conversations, the fear of saying something wrong in front of Emma. The weight of carrying knowledge we couldn't share. My father was right. Truth wasn't always merciful. Sometimes truth was a weapon that destroyed more than it healed. I need to think about it, I finally said. My father nodded. Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere. But David, whatever you decide about your mother, I want to ask one more thing. Can I see Emma? Not as her grandfather. Not yet. But maybe as a family friend. Someone you met who wants to get to know her. I've missed so much of her life. I just want to be near her, even if she never knows who I really am. The request felt like another betrayal. You want to lie to her too? You want to pretend to be some random person in her life instead of the grandfather she thinks is dead? My father's voice broke. I want to know my granddaughter. I want to hear her laugh. I want to see what kind of person she's becoming. I know I have no right to ask for that. I know I gave up that right when I let you think I was dead. But I'm asking anyway because the alternative is never seeing her again, and I can't accept that. I thought about Emma, about how she'd reacted to the stranger in the backyard, about how she'd asked why the man looked like Grandpa, about how explaining that would require explaining everything, about how a 9-year-old couldn't be expected to keep a secret that could get people killed. She can't know the truth, I said. She's too young to understand, too young to keep something this big quiet. If we do this, your Uncle Jack, a friend of mine from work, someone who wants to be part of her life for normal, non-grandfather reasons. Can you do that? Can you pretend to be a stranger to your own granddaughter? My father wiped his eyes. I can do whatever I have to do to be part of her life, even if it's under false pretenses, even if she never knows the truth. I just need to be near her. The arrangement felt wrong on every level, but I was out of better options. I'll talk to Natasha, see if she can handle having you around. But if Emma starts asking questions, if this starts to fall apart, you disappear. You go back to being dead and you never contact us again. Understood? My father nodded. Understood. I went home and had the conversation with Natasha. She hated the idea, hated the deception, hated the risk, but she also understood that my father wasn't going away, that ignoring this problem wouldn't make it disappear. So we agreed to try, to introduce him as Uncle Jack, to see if we could maintain the lie well enough to keep everyone safe. The first visit was excruciating. My father showed up at our door on a Saturday morning with donuts and an explanation that he was David's old friend from the army, visiting town and wanting to catch up. Emma, bless her, accepted this without question. She was polite, but shy, hiding behind Natasha's legs and peeking out at this stranger who'd brought breakfast. My father didn't push, didn't try to force connection, just sat at our kitchen table making small talk while Emma slowly warmed up to him. By the end of the visit, Emma was showing him her drawings, telling him about school, asking if he wanted to see her collection of rocks she'd gathered from various parks. My father listened to everything like she was revealing the secrets of the universe. His face transformed when she talked to him. The guilt and exhaustion and pain fell away, replaced by pure joy at being near his granddaughter. When he left, Emma hugged him goodbye without prompting. "Uncle Jack is nice," she told me after he'd gone. "He listens to me the way Grandpa used to listen in the videos." The comparison was a knife in my chest. She recognized him on some fundamental level, recognized the genetic echo, the shared mannerisms, the way he tilted his head when he was thinking. She just didn't have the context to understand what she was seeing. Over the following months, Uncle Jack became a regular presence in our lives. He came over for dinner once a week, took Emma to the park, helped her with homework, all of it under the cover story of being my old military buddy who'd moved to town. Natasha struggled with the deception. I could see it eating at her. The lying to Emma, the lying to our friends, the constant performance of normalcy while harboring a secret that violated everything we believed about honesty and family. "This can't last," she said one night after Emma was asleep and my father had left. "Eventually someone is going to recognize him, someone who knew him before, someone who will ask questions we can't answer." She was right. We lived in the same town where my father had grown up, where he'd gone to high school, where he'd been a local hero. The odds of him running into someone from his past were significant. The collision happened at the grocery store 3 months after my father had reappeared. Natasha and I were shopping with Emma when we ran into Keith, my neighbor, the Marine veteran who'd served with my father. Keith saw us and started to come over, friendly and smiling. Then he saw who was with us, saw my father standing there holding a bag of apples. Keith's face went through several rapid transitions: confusion, recognition, shock. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at me with an expression that demanded explanation. I stepped between him and my father. "Keith, this is Jack Dalton. He's an old friend. From college." I emphasized the different last name, tried to communicate through my eyes that he needed to play along. Keith wasn't stupid. He looked at my father, looked at me, looked at Emma, who was oblivious to the tension. "Jack Dalton," Keith repeated slowly. "Right. From college, not from the service." My father extended his hand. "Keith Bailey, good to see you again after all these years." The handshake was brief and loaded with unspoken communication. Keith excused himself quickly, but not before giving me a look that said this conversation wasn't over. That night, Keith showed up at my door. I'd been expecting him. I invited him in and sent Emma to her room to play. Natasha stayed, standing beside me in a show of united front. Keith sat on our couch and looked at all of us before speaking. "I served with Jack Thornton for 8 years. I know his face better than I know my own brother's face. That man in the grocery store was Jack Thornton. So either I'm losing my mind, or there's something going on that you need to explain to me right now." I'd prepared for this moment, had a story ready, a lie that would protect my father and protect us. But looking at Keith, at this man who'd served honorably, who'd been at my father's funeral, who deserved better than more lies, I couldn't do it. "I need you to promise me something before I tell you the truth," I said. "I need you to promise that what I'm about to say stays in this room, that you never repeat it, that you never ask questions about it. Because if the wrong people find out what I'm about to tell you, people will die. Real people, including possibly me and my family." Keith's expression went serious. "You have my word. Whatever this is, it stays here." So I told him. Everything. The helicopter crash, the classified program, the fake death, the government conspiracy, the impossible choice my father had made. Keith listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "Your father is a traitor." The word hung in the air like a physical thing. He abandoned his post. He abandoned his family. He let people grieve a lie. I don't care what classified program he was part of. I don't care what threats the government made. A real soldier doesn't disappear, doesn't let his family suffer, doesn't hide behind national security as an excuse for cowardice. The accusation stung because part of me agreed with it. Part of me had been thinking the same thing since my father walked into that birthday party. But hearing it spoken aloud by another veteran, someone who understood military culture and duty, made it real in a way I'd been avoiding. "He thought he was protecting us," I said weakly. Keith shook his head. "He was protecting himself. He made a choice that let him keep serving, keep being the hero, keep doing the job he loved. And he made everyone else pay the price for that choice. That's not protection. That's selfishness." Natasha spoke up for the first time. What do we do now? Now that you know? Keith stood, his face hard. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to decide if my oath to protect secrets is stronger than my oath to hold people accountable. And you're going to figure out what kind of man you want to be. The kind who protects his father's lies, or the kind who demands the truth no matter what it costs. He left without saying goodbye. I stood at the door watching him walk across the lawn to his own house, wondering if I'd just made a fatal mistake, wondering if Keith would keep his word, or if tomorrow would bring federal agents or military police or worse. Natasha and I didn't sleep that night. We lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for sounds that would indicate our lives were about to implode. But morning came quietly. No agents, no police, just normal suburban silence and the sound of Emma singing to herself in her room while getting ready for school. Keith didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. I'd see him outside, working in his yard or getting mail, and he'd look right through me like I didn't exist. The silent treatment was almost worse than confrontation. It meant he was processing, thinking, deciding what to do with information that could destroy multiple lives. Then, on a Saturday morning, Keith knocked on my door. He looked tired, like he'd aged years in 2 weeks. I need to talk to Jack, he said without preamble. Can you set that up? I wanted to say no, wanted to protect my father from whatever Keith was planning, but I also knew that refusing would only make things worse. I called my father and arranged a meeting. The three of us sat in my living room while Natasha kept Emma occupied outside. Keith looked at my father for a long moment before speaking. I want to understand why, not the official justification, not the classified program bullshit. I want to understand how you could let your family grieve you while you were alive and serving, how you could watch your son become a man without you, how you could miss the first 6 years of your granddaughter's life. Make me understand that. My father didn't flinch from the accusation. I can't make you understand it because I don't fully understand it myself anymore. At the time, it seemed clear. Serve my country in the highest capacity possible, or go home and face court-martial. Protect my family by giving them death benefits and a hero's legacy, or give them nothing and a father in prison. The choice seemed obvious, but living with that choice, watching from a distance while David raised Emma, seeing how my death affected everyone, it became less clear. By the time I realized what I'd lost, it was too late to get it back. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to think I made the right choice. I'm just asking you to let me have whatever scraps of relationship I can build with what's left. Keith's expression didn't soften. You know what bothers me most? It's not that you chose duty over family. I can understand that mindset, even if I don't agree with it. It's that you came back. If you'd stayed gone, stayed dead, your family could have healed, could have moved on completely. But you came back, and now they're trapped. They can't grieve you because you're alive. They can't have you because you're supposed to be dead. You put them in an impossible position because you wanted to ease your own guilt. That's the part I can't forgive. The analysis was brutal and accurate. My father had no defense against it. You're right, he said quietly. Coming back was selfish. I should have stayed disappeared, but I couldn't. Couldn't die without knowing Emma. Couldn't spend the rest of my life wondering what kind of person she became. So yes, I'm selfish. I'm weak, and I'm asking everyone to pay for my weakness. Keith stood. I'm not going to report you. Not because you deserve protection, but because reporting you would hurt David and his family more than it would hurt you. But I want you to know something. Every day you're in their lives, you're putting them at risk. Every person who recognizes you is a potential disaster. Every conversation you have with Emma is built on a lie that could traumatize her if she ever learns the truth. You think you're giving them a gift by being here, but you're really just spreading the poison of your choices to another generation. If you actually love them, you'll disappear. You'll let them believe you're dead and let them heal properly. He left without waiting for a response. My father sat in silence, Keith's words hanging heavy in the air. He's right, my father finally said. I should go, should let you all move on without me. But he didn't leave. He kept coming around, kept being Uncle Jack, kept building a relationship with Emma that was based on fundamental dishonesty. Months turned into a year. Emma started 4th grade. My father was at her school play, her soccer games, her birthday party. To anyone watching, he was just a family friend who'd become important to a little girl who'd lost her grandfather years ago. But the weight of the secret was crushing all of us. Natasha started having panic attacks, convinced every phone call would be federal agents. I couldn't look at my mother without feeling sick with guilt. Emma started asking questions about why Uncle Jack was around so much, why Grandma never met him, why he looked so much like Grandpa in the old photos. The lie was unraveling slowly. Then Natasha's sister came to visit. Linda had never met my father before his death, had only seen pictures. She took one look at Uncle Jack and said, loud enough for Emma to hear, "My God, David, that man could be your father's twin. The resemblance is uncanny." Emma's head snapped up. She looked at my father with new eyes, looked at me, looked back at my father. I could see the pieces clicking together in her 10-year-old brain. "Daddy," she said slowly, "Uncle Jack looks exactly like Grandpa. Exactly. Why does he look exactly like Grandpa?" The room went silent. Every adult frozen. My father's face went pale. Natasha looked like she might be sick. Linda, realizing she'd stepped in something, backed toward the door. Emma was still staring at me, waiting for an answer, and I had to choose in that moment whether to keep lying to my daughter or tell her a truth that could destroy her innocence. "Emma, sweetheart, some people just look alike. It's a coincidence." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. Emma wasn't buying it. She turned to my father. "Are you my grandpa? Are you Grandpa Jack?" My father looked at me, asking permission with his eyes. I shook my head slightly. Too dangerous. Too complicated. But my father didn't look away from Emma. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'm your grandfather. I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry you thought I was dead. I'm sorry for all of this." Emma's face went through rapid changes. Confusion, joy, anger, betrayal. "But we had a funeral. Daddy said you died in a helicopter. We have your picture on the wall. How can you be alive if you died?" My father knelt down to her level. "I didn't die. I had to pretend to die for reasons that are very complicated. But I'm alive, and I'm here, and I love you very much." Emma looked at me. "Did you know? Did you know Grandpa was alive?" The accusation in her voice broke my heart. "Yes, I found out a year ago. I didn't tell you because it was complicated and dangerous, and I was trying to protect you." Emma started crying, not sad crying, angry crying. "You lied to me. All of you lied to me. You let me think Grandpa was dead for my whole life, and he was just here pretending to be Uncle Jack. That's so mean. That's the meanest thing ever." She ran to her room and slammed the door. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Natasha followed her, trying to comfort her, trying to explain the unexplainable. Linda quietly left, promising to never mention what she'd heard, and I stood there with my father, looking at the wreckage of our choices. "This is exactly what Keith said would happen," I said. "You being here, lying to her, it's traumatized her. She'll never trust me the same way again. Never trust you. This is what your selfishness bought us." My father's face was ravaged. "I know. I'll leave. I'll disappear again. I'll let you try to fix this without me making it worse." But before he could go, Emma came storming back out of her room. Her face was red, tear-streaked, furious. "You don't get to leave," she said to my father. "You don't get to show up and then disappear again. You're my grandpa, and I want to know why. Why did you pretend to die? Why did you lie to us? Why did you let us be sad when you were alive the whole time?" My father sat down slowly, like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore, and he told her. Not all of it. Not the classified details, but enough. He told her about the helicopter crash that wasn't his, about the government asking him to stay dead, about the choice between serving his country and coming home to his family, about missing her whole life and regretting it every day. Emma listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "That was a stupid choice. You should have come home. You should have picked us over the government." My father nodded. "You're absolutely right. It was stupid. And I'm sorry." Emma thought about this. "Can you be my grandpa now? Like, for real? Can you come to my stuff and be at dinner and be normal?" My father looked at me. I didn't know what to say. Letting him be openly her grandfather meant risking exposure, meant risking everything. But I also saw Emma's face, saw how much she wanted this, how much she'd always wanted her grandfather back. "We'll figure it out," I heard myself saying. "But Emma, you can never tell anyone that Grandpa is alive. Not your friends, not your teachers, not Grandma. It has to be our secret. Because if the wrong people find out, very bad things could happen to all of us." Emma nodded seriously. "I can keep a secret. I'm good at secrets." The burden we were putting on a 10-year-old was unconscionable, but we were out of options. My father started openly being Grandpa Jack to Emma, at least when we were home alone. In public, he was still Uncle Jack. The dual identity was confusing for her at first, but she adapted. Children are resilient in ways adults forget. She learned to call him Uncle Jack at school events and Grandpa at home, learned to be careful about what she said to her friends, learned to live with the same lie we'd all been living with. But keeping the secret was harder for a child than for adults. She'd slip sometimes, call him Grandpa in front of strangers, talk about things they'd done together in ways that didn't match the Uncle Jack story. Each time we'd have to scramble to cover, to explain, to reinforce the lie. Then Emma asked the question I'd been dreading. Why can't Grandma know? Why does she have to think Grandpa is dead when he's not? I didn't have a good answer. Because Grandma is sick, sweetheart. The truth might make her sicker. Emma's expression was skeptical. That's dumb. Truth doesn't make people sick. Lies make people sick. We should tell her, my father intervened. Your dad is right, Emma. Sometimes the truth is too much for people to handle. Grandma loved me very much. Finding out I've been alive all this time would hurt her in ways she couldn't recover from. Emma wasn't satisfied. But she deserves to know. If you really love her, you'd tell her the truth. The 10-year-old had more moral clarity than any of us. She was right. My mother deserved to know. But every time I thought about telling her, I imagined her face, imagined the betrayal, imagined her heart giving out from the shock, and I couldn't do it. The decision was made for me when my mother called one morning in distress. She'd had another cardiac event. Not major, but concerning enough that her doctor wanted her admitted for observation. I drove to the hospital with Emma, needing to see my mother, needing to know she was okay. We found her in a bed, monitors beeping, looking small and fragile in the hospital gown. She smiled when she saw Emma, tried to sit up and be cheerful. There's my favorite granddaughter. Come give Grandma a hug. Emma hugged her carefully, afraid of hurting her. Then she said, so casually it took a moment to register, Don't worry, Grandma. Grandpa says you're going to be fine. My mother froze. What did you say, sweetheart? Emma realized her mistake too late. Her eyes went wide. She looked at me for help, but I had nothing. The truth was out. My mother's vitals started going haywire, heart rate spiking, blood pressure dropping. Nurses rushed in. I was pushed out of the room while they stabilized her. Emma was crying, apologizing, saying she didn't mean to. I called Natasha and told her what happened. Then I called my father and told him to get to the hospital now. If my mother was going to find out the truth, it needed to come from him. My father arrived within 20 minutes. He looked terrified. Is she okay? Is she stable? I nodded. For now, but she knows something. She heard Emma mention you. You need to go in there and tell her everything before she assumes something worse. My father hesitated at the door to her room. This could kill her. I pushed him gently toward the door. She deserves the truth. Whatever happens, she deserves to know. My father walked into my mother's hospital room. I watched through the window as she saw him, watched her face go through every emotion humans are capable of feeling. Shock, disbelief, joy, rage, confusion. She tried to sit up, tried to speak. My father moved to her bedside, taking her hand, talking to her urgently while machines beeped warnings. Nurses hovered nearby, ready to intervene. I couldn't hear what he was saying through the glass, but I could see my mother crying, could see her pulling her hand away, could see her pointing at the door, telling him to leave. My father didn't leave. He stayed beside her bed, kept talking, kept trying to explain the unexplainable. Eventually, my mother stopped trying to push him away, stopped shouting, just lay there crying, while my father held her hand and apologized over and over. 2 hours later, my father emerged. His face was destroyed. She knows everything. I told her all of it. The crash, the program, the choice I made. She's devastated, furious, but she's stable. The doctors say the shock didn't trigger another cardiac event. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or horrified. What happens now? My father shook his head. I don't know. She asked me to leave, said she needs time to process this, time to decide if she can ever forgive me. I don't think she can. I don't think I'd forgive me either. Over the following weeks, my mother stayed in the hospital for observation. Her heart remained unstable, stress-induced complications that kept her there longer than expected. She refused to see my father, refused to talk about him. When I visited, she'd ask about Emma, about Natasha, about anything except the man who'd risen from the dead and shattered her world. Emma was traumatized by what she'd done. She blamed herself for Grandma being in the hospital. No amount of reassurance could convince her that telling the truth hadn't been wrong. Natasha and I got her into therapy, a child psychologist who specialized in family trauma. But how do you help a child process the fact that her grandfather faked his death, her parents lied to her, and telling the truth put her grandmother in the hospital? There was no roadmap for this level of dysfunction. My father called every day, asking about my mother, asking if there was anything he could do. I had no answers for him. The damage was comprehensive and possibly irreparable. Keith stopped by one evening while I was sitting on my porch, trying to escape the tension in my own house. He sat down without invitation. I heard about what happened at the hospital. I'm assuming your mother knows now. I nodded. Keith was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry. I know this is hard, but maybe it's better this way. Maybe secrets like this aren't meant to be kept forever. Better? The word came out harsh. My mother is in the hospital because of this truth. Emma is traumatized. My wife is having panic attacks. My father is a ghost again, haunting the edges of our life. How is any of this better? Keith met my eyes. Because lies always collapse eventually. You can only hold them up for so long before the weight becomes unbearable. Better to have it collapse now, in a controlled way, than later when even more damage has accumulated. I wanted to argue, but I was too tired, too wrung out from weeks of maintaining impossible deceptions. What would you have done if you were me? If your father had come back from the dead and asked you to lie to everyone? Keith considered this seriously. I would have told him to stay dead. Would have told him that his choice 6 years ago was final, and he didn't get to reverse it because he was feeling guilty. I would have protected my family from his crisis of conscience. The answer was harsh, but honest. I couldn't do that. Couldn't look at my father and tell him to disappear. Couldn't deny Emma the chance to know her grandfather, even if it meant carrying this burden. Keith stood to leave. Then you made your choice, and now you live with the consequences, just like your father has to live with his. He walked away, leaving me alone with thoughts I'd been avoiding. My father had made an impossible choice 6 years ago, and I'd made my own impossible choice a year ago when I agreed to let him back into our lives. Neither of us had chosen well. Both of us had prioritized what we wanted over what was wise, and now everyone we loved was paying the price. My mother was eventually discharged from the hospital. She came home to an empty house that still smelled like my father, still had his belongings in the closets, still carried evidence of 30 years of marriage. I visited her a week after she came home. She looked older, frailer, like something essential had been drained out of her. We sat in her living room, and she asked me the question I'd been dreading. Did you know he was alive all along? For 6 years, did you know? I shook my head. No, I only found out a year ago, at Emma's birthday party. He just showed up, and my whole world fell apart. My mother absorbed this. Why didn't you tell me then? Why did you let me keep thinking he was dead? The guilt I'd been carrying erupted. Because I was afraid it would kill you. Because your heart was already weak, and I thought the shock would be too much. Because I made a choice to protect you from the truth, and I was wrong. I should have told you immediately. Should have trusted you to handle it. I'm sorry. My mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something unexpected. I want to see him. I want to talk to him. Not to forgive him. Not to welcome him back, but to understand. I need to look him in the eyes and hear him explain how he could do this to us. I called my father and arranged the meeting. He came to my mother's house the next evening, moving like a man walking to his execution. I stayed, sitting in the corner while they faced each other across the living room they'd once shared. My mother spoke first. Tell me about the 6 years, not the classified parts, the personal parts. Tell me what you did while I was grieving you. My father's voice was rough. I worked. Constantly. Took every mission they offered me because it was easier than thinking about what I'd given up. I lived in safe houses and temporary apartments. Had no friends, no relationships, no life outside the job. I monitored your social media accounts from a distance, saw pictures of Emma growing up, read David's posts about his life, watched you age through photographs and hated myself more every day. My mother's face was stone. Did you ever think about coming home? Ever consider telling us the truth? My father nodded. Every day. But they made it clear that if I broke cover, people would die, not just me. Potentially you and David and Emma. The program I worked for made powerful enemies. They had long memories and extensive resources. As long as Jack Thornton was officially dead, you were all safe. If I came back, I'd paint targets on all of you. My mother leaned forward. So you made a unilateral decision that your death was preferable to any risk to us. You didn't ask what we wanted, didn't give us a choice, just decided that you knew best and acted accordingly. My father flinched. Yes, I made that choice, and I was wrong. I understand that now. But at the time, it seemed like the only option that protected everyone. My mother stood. She walked to the mantel where my father's urn still sat, the urn that supposedly contained his ashes. She picked it up and held it out to him. These were supposed to be you. The funeral home mixed someone else's ashes with sand and gave me this. I've been talking to sand for 6 years, praying over sand, finding comfort in sand. How do I process that level of deception? My father took the urn with shaking hands. I don't know. I don't know how any of you process this. I don't know how to make it right. I can only tell you I'm sorry and know that sorry isn't enough. My mother sat back down heavily. You're right. Sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't give me back 6 years, doesn't undo the grief, doesn't restore my trust. But I need to know one thing. Are you staying dead, or are you staying alive? Because I can't do this middle ground. Can't have you be a ghost that haunts us. Either you're gone completely, or you're here completely. Choose. The ultimatum hung in the air. My father looked at me, looked at the urn in his hands, looked at my mother. I want to stay, want to be part of this family again if you'll have me. I know I don't deserve it. I know the damage is too great to fully repair, but I'm asking anyway. My mother's expression didn't soften. If you stay, there are conditions. You don't get to be the hero, don't get to be the martyred soldier anymore. You're the man who abandoned his family and lied about it. You live with that identity. You explain it to everyone who asks. You don't hide behind national security or classified programs. You own what you did. My father nodded. I'll own it. All of it, my mother continued. And you help me understand how to move forward. Because right now I'm so angry I can barely look at you. But underneath the anger is 6 years of love that didn't die just because I thought you did. I need time to figure out which emotion is stronger. The conversation didn't end with reconciliation, didn't end with hugs or forgiveness, just ended with a fragile agreement to keep talking, to try to find some way forward through the wreckage. Over the following months, my father and mother met weekly, sometimes at her house, sometimes at coffee shops, always tense, always difficult. Emma was allowed to see him openly now, no more pretending he was Uncle Jack. She was hesitant at first, hurt by the deception, but gradually she warmed back up to him. Children forgive more easily than adults. They don't carry grudges the same way. My father moved back to town officially, got an apartment, found work as a security consultant. He attended Emma's school events, sitting in the back, keeping distance from other parents who might recognize him. The whispers started immediately. People who swore he looked like Jack Thornton, people who remembered the funeral. The questions multiplied. We crafted a story. Jack Thornton's estranged twin brother, never mentioned before because of a family falling out. It was weak, but it was something. Most people accepted it because the alternative was too bizarre to consider. But Keith knew, and a few others suspected. The truth was like water, seeping through every crack in our carefully constructed lie. Natasha struggled with everything. The constant vigilance, the ongoing deception, the weight of knowing her entire life was built on fraud and continued fraud. She started seeing a therapist, processing the trauma of living with secrets that could destroy us. One night she told me she wasn't sure she could do this anymore. Wasn't sure she could raise Emma in this environment of lies. I didn't sign up for this, she said. When I married you, your father was dead. That was one kind of grief, but at least it was honest grief. This is just poison. Every day, more poison. I didn't have an argument against her logic. She was right. We were poisoning ourselves, poisoning Emma, poisoning every relationship we had with dishonesty. What do you want me to do? I asked. Natasha looked at me with exhausted eyes. I want you to choose, your father or your family, because we can't keep doing both. The choice she was demanding was impossible, but it was also fair. My father's presence had created nothing but chaos and pain. Keith had been right. My father should have stayed dead. Coming back had been selfish. Staying was more selfishness. The loving thing would be for him to disappear. But how do I tell my father he has to die again? How do I explain to Emma that Grandpa has to go away forever? How do I live with myself if I choose either option? I met my father at Riverside Park, at the same pavilion where this had all started. We need to talk. He knew from my tone this wasn't good news. Natasha wants you gone, I said without preamble. She can't handle the stress of the lies anymore. She's right. Your being here has created nothing but damage. Maybe it's time to go. Time to let us heal. My father absorbed this. Is that what you want? I thought about it honestly. I don't know what I want. I know having you in my life has cost me my marriage, traumatized my daughter, almost killed my mother, and turned me into someone I don't recognize. But I also know that losing you again would create its own damage. There's no good choice here. My father stood, looking out at the water. I'm going to make the choice for you. I'm going to leave, not because I want to, but because staying is destroying everyone I love. I'll move somewhere far away. I'll let you tell Emma I had to go for work or health or whatever story you need. And I'll stay gone this time. Really gone. The finality of it was crushing. And Mom, you'll just disappear on her again after she finally agreed to try to work things out? My father's face showed the pain of the choice. Your mother deserves better than me. She deserves peace. She deserves to rebuild her life without the ghost of her dead but not dead husband haunting her. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. But tell her I'm gone. He walked away then. No dramatic goodbye. No final embrace. Just walked away like he had in my backyard a year ago. And I let him go because I didn't know what else to do. I went home and told Natasha. She cried, but they were tears of relief. Told Emma that Grandpa had to move far away for health reasons. She cried, but accepted it with the resilience of children. Told my mother that my father had chosen to disappear again, rather than keep causing pain. She nodded silently, and I couldn't tell if she was heartbroken or relieved. Life gradually returned to something resembling normal. The secrets became less immediate, less urgent. Emma stopped slipping and calling him Grandpa in public because he wasn't around to slip about. Natasha's panic attacks decreased. My mother's health stabilized. We rebuilt on ground that was unsteady, but no longer actively collapsing. Then, 18 months after my father left, I received a letter. No return address. Postmarked from somewhere in Oregon. Inside was a single page in my father's handwriting. David, I'm dying. Real dying this time. Cancer. The doctors give me maybe 6 months. I'm writing to let you know, but also to ask you not to come. Not to tell Emma. Not to restart all the pain I finally managed to end by leaving. Let me die this time for real. Let there be a body and closure and finality. I'm sorry for everything. I love you all. Jack. I read the letter 3 times, trying to process what I was feeling. Relief that this would finally end properly. Grief that I'd lose him again. Anger that even his dying was complicated and painful. I showed the letter to Natasha. She read it and handed it back. He's asking you not to go. Are you going to listen? I didn't know. On one hand, my father had earned his right to die alone through his choices. On the other hand, he was my father, and he was dying. I called the number at the bottom of the letter. My father answered on the 3rd ring. I asked you not to come. His voice was weak, hollow. I'm not coming. I'm just calling to say goodbye properly this time. To tell you I forgive you. Not because you earned it, but because carrying anger and resentment for however long I have left seems like a waste. My father was quiet. Then he said, "Thank you. That means more than you know. Tell Emma I love her. Tell your mother I'm sorry I couldn't be the man she deserved." 6 months later, I received another call. A hospice nurse from Oregon. My father had died. Left instructions for cremation and for his ashes to be scattered in the ocean. Left a will that divided his savings among me, Emma, and my mother. Left letters for each of us. The letter to me was short. David, I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to choose family over duty. I'm sorry my choices created trauma you'll carry forever. But I'm not sorry I got to know Emma, even briefly. Not sorry I got to see the man you became. Not sorry for the time I had, even though it cost too much. Be better than me. Choose your family. Always choose your family. There was a funeral this time. A real one. Small and private. Just me, Natasha, Emma, and my mother. We scattered ashes that were actually his ashes in the river where he'd taught me to fish as a child. Emma cried. My mother was silent, and I felt a strange sense of peace. Not because he was gone, but because this time I knew he was gone. This time there would be no resurrection. Years later, Emma asked me if I was angry at Grandpa for lying. I thought about it carefully before answering. No, I'm not angry anymore. I understand that he made choices that seemed right to him, even if they weren't right for us. He was human. He was flawed. He tried to serve his country and his family, and failed at both in different ways. But he loved us. That was never a lie. Emma thought about this and said something wise beyond her years. I think love means choosing to be with people even when it's hard. Grandpa chose the easy thing, which was staying away. That wasn't really love. She was right. Love requires presence, not absence. Requires honesty, not secrets. My father's choices, made from fear and duty and misguided protection, had cost all of us years of honest relationship. But his death gave us something his resurrection never could. Clear truth, grief with boundaries, an ending that held finality. We scattered his ashes and let him go, really let him go, carrying the complicated truth that loving someone doesn't mean excusing their choices. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.